Kia ora koutou. We are Monique Redmond and Emily O'Hara. We're artists and lecturers who work together in the School of Art and Design at Auckland University of Technology. Our paper, Rise to Your Senses, Social Exchange Artworks as Sustenance, will make a case for the role of extended duration artworks in providing sustenance for creative practitioners and how exchange and participation as material matter brings joy and sustenance to participants, the public. In this fast-paced world we move in, it is critical that ample weight be given to practices and research that prioritise modes of connection, collaboration and community.
For us, joy is an implicit and explicit aspect in the making and dispersal of temporal artworks and exchange events. It is about the impacts of practising over time and within duration, slowing down to appreciate the present moment, responding to a global urgency to engage in generosity and support, manaakitanga, and be responsible to and care for our relations, whakawhanaungatanga. We will discuss how joy can manifest within the public every day through the slightest of presences. Finding joy in everyday occurrences is a necessity of life and core to our survival as feeling humans. By sharing social practice projects that utilise reciprocity as a central condition of its unfolding for a public, we'll explore how presences, resonances and joy provide the basis for affective support structures to nurture collective appreciation. We live in Tamaki Makaurau, Aotearoa, New Zealand, in which the Indigenous people and language are Māori. We use te reo Māori kupu, words that describe the concepts we practice with. We think about these kupu specifically as they encompass much more than their literal English translations and counterparts, representing and embodying tangible and intangible temporalities. The terms whakawhanaungatanga and manaakitanga bring together two central tenets of our temporal durational art practices and interest in social exchange artworks for the way they situate in ethics of care and building of relationships. Practising in this way creates a space of tau utu utu, or reciprocity. This is something that fills and sustains us. It's relevant to reflect how joy might manifest the experiential aspects of an artwork, the part experienced as feelings. Art has an essential role to play in recognising and acknowledging that which creates relationality, lived experiences that have the power to communicate about and into the spaces of our everyday.
My artistic ethos is all about sharing, generosity, inclusivity and reciprocity. A love for flowers, ceramics and printed matter forms the social conduits through which I uphold manaakitanga and whakawhanaungatanga by finding ways to take note, to recognise the things that resonate and stir us. This feeling that forms in our hearts when we're drawn to notice makes this reciprocal practice active, a joyful encounter, a social bond held by synchronous actions being performed across quotidian space and time. Engaging in a practice that lives in the everyday, for me in the world, is sustenance building. I feel joy when I see a flowering tree in bloom as I drive by suburban front yards, no matter where I am. Joy that is passed on to a willing recipient through a social conduit, which is the thing that facilitates the reciprocal moment. Te moihio is to know, understand, realise, comprehend and recognise in this context when an everyday interaction transcends into something more. This more acts as a loop of occurrences that calls the public to attention when located within the art viewing experience. Part of creating a practice that recognises joy is taking the public on an adventure, rising to one's senses and being open to the feelings that arrive. The drive-bys have been a fundamental mode of my daily practising since 2004. My appreciation has borne the exchange events, of which I will share 3 today. Flowering Now involves me placing an advert in the classified section of the New Zealand Herald newspaper under community notices announcing what is flowering now. I share these ads when I notice what is in bloom while driving by. The announcements are a short expression and declaration of my joy. Budding vase subscription by nature is reciprocal. The conditions are simple. If you have a bud in your garden or have spotted a bloom to forage and want to bring it inside for display and company, you send us a photo of it. we post you a co-produced ceramic bud vase and you send us a picture of the flower and bud vase in situ. A floral gesture is a 2-colour double exposure risograph print, an image of a magnolia bloom in action. A stack of blooms is left in public places like florist shops, conferences and service desks for passers-by to take away and enjoy or pass on to another. The exchange events are more than encounters. They are relational, quiet, sometimes provocative, but most often a celebration of my seeing matching another's joy. The concept of enjoyment should be shared within and by art, prompting a minor shift or change of register and comprehension. I want the public who encounters my artwork to experience joy through the process of moyo in all of its felt states. I feel warmth when I realise my noticing meets yours, that the artwork has managed to share its love event and be received in kind. French-Italian artist Celine Condorelli writes that support is based on generosity, and that supporting contains an offer, an invitation, which could be defined as a type of relationship between people, objects, social forms and political structures. This relational process of whakawhanaungatanga is constantly in motion in my exchange events. Taiwanese-American artist Li Mingwei describes the passing on of blooms in the moving garden as kindnesses, a work where he saw the using of flowers as a medium of trust and intimacy between strangers. I like thinking about Li's kindnesses as conceptual gestures, similar to how I conceive of the floral gestures. The risograph print is a conceptual bloom and memory holder. Each iteration is made from photos taken of the previous year's flowering. The magnolia tree was a gift honouring my brother Paul, who had become a drive-by companion and died in 2015. The takeaway magnolia is a signifier of our time spent, love and loss embodied in my making and extending of these blooms to another. A floral gesture's dispersal process is cyclical, in that the public may gift it on to someone else, who in turn may then pass it on again. Processually, it could be described as a relay of generosity. I like the idea that Lewis Hyde, in writing on the gift, proposes the labour of gratitude is the middle term in the passage of a gift. He talks about the gift having the power to awaken us, to fill us, take up residence in our souls. I have a hunch that the feeling bond, which I hope the exchange events impart, incites people to rise to their senses through resonance, appreciation and joy. With budding vase subscription, the repetitive action of noticing a blooming occurrence might be forthcoming. Admiring and cutting that bloom to inhabit a vase activates the exchange event. Linked to this action is satisfaction, a vase to host a gesture and a constellation of shared acts. Reciprocity exists in the literal exchange and the affectual qualities of appreciation, enjoyment, and in the telling of its arrangement. Through the simple act of picking up a risograph print or subscribing to Budding Vase subscription, the public is involved in producing sociality through sensory relations. While no longer visible as a single pile of floral gesture prints or a set of 100 bud vases, once dispersed, both exchange events extend their social bond through ongoing use and iterative participation. Celebrating joyful encounters in quotidian ways is what Flowering Now is about too. The ads gesture enthusiastically towards an image of the flowering event. The person reading the ad in the newspaper can imagine and know then what it is that they will confirm on seeing, but they can also relish in the description, the genuine excitement and appreciation of a flowering tree that gestures towards us as we collectively drive on by.
I was born on the 27th of February in a leap year and named in honour of my grandmother who died before I was born. These two events sowed the seed for my enduring fascination with time, forming a large part of why my spatial arts practice turned toward durational work in 2016. I make work related to the everyday, particularly the rhythms and repetitions of life and death. I see my creative practice as a way to understand the multiple scales of time and space that we collectively exist within, from the everyday to the celestial. I work with worldly phenomena which often require me to wait. This includes diurnal shifts of night and day, lunar and solar cycles, sunlight and moonlight as material matter. For me, joy manifests through the slightest of presences: a beautiful sky, sunlight moving through a house, a familiar scent, holding a match to the wick of a candle. Embedded in these moments is an awareness of the instant, the nowness of the feeling. My senses trigger awareness of something more profound, older, deeper. These moments allow me to perceive, feel, and understand beyond the limits of myself. In other words, for me, joy is always relational. It brings me closer to time, place, and event. Like American poet, essayist, and Professor Ross Gay, I find connection between joy and sorrow. Joy emerges in part due to the temporal nature of the things I make, the moments they connect to, and their material expression. I rejoice in a slow, repetitive practice that connects to things that don't last. Temporality is an invitation for me to pay attention, to bring one's senses to the present moment. Like many others, I'm often struck by the exquisite shifts in light and colour in our skies. Noticing the sky in these moments is so joyful to me. It makes me stop, pause, and slow down because I know that it is fleeting. I'll be in a bus or car, washing dishes at the kitchen sink, hanging out laundry, walking to the library, or coming out of a supermarket, and be totally transported when I sense a shift in the light around me. It was noticing these moments that led to one of my longest running durational works, Skylight Archive. Started in 2017, it's an Instagram account in which I archive images of the sky along with the location, date, and time as a caption. At the time, I was struck by the knowledge that there would likely be hundreds, if not thousands, of people around the world also looking at the sky, and I was gifted with the sensation that we were watching its beauty together in a spatially dispersed way. I first encountered the work of Aotearoa-born Chinese artist Cindy Huang through a project called Twin Cultivation in July 2022, made in collaboration with designer Michael McCabe and producer Rosabelle Tan. A call went out inviting the public to join this participatory artwork, which was held in 2 locations, both of which were public sites. One, the platform of a train station, and the other inside an enormous atrium in an open-air shopping and dining precinct. 240 strangers took part over the 2 weeks of the project. The work presented a small-scaled garden with structures designed by McCabe. The beds were filled with ceramics by Huang. What transpired was a very intimate encounter between myself and one other person who had signed up for the same time slot. Twin Cultivation invited each of us into the work through the other participants' eyes, words, recollections, and choices. Printed material, or ephemera, guided us through a series of questions, such as our favourite food dish as a child. The culminating act was to choose a ceramic piece to harvest and gift to the other person based on what had been shared. The chosen piece was then wrapped carefully in the provided material, and we wrote a note to one another as part of the gifting process. Huang describes the objects of Twin Cultivation as a constellation of keepsakes across Tamaki Makaurau, spread like seeds in the wind. There's a kind of looking back and looking forward that characterises Huang's work for me, where ideas of ancestry and tacit knowledge form the foundation of a work, and her crafted objects create space for reciprocity and exchange. When the Sun Stands Still began in April 2024 with an open call inviting 12 people to host conceptual lightboxes on north-facing walls in their homes from winter to summer solstice of this year. The lightboxes will produce an image through a pinhole-like mechanism. Daily light will track a path into the concealed material surface below an opaque front, creating a celestial still, which will form the basis for an exhibition in early 2025. I love thinking about how the people who host these lightboxes will walk past them each day while the light gathers in the apertures, drawing curtains across windows at night to open them again in the morning, and the idea that the lightboxes are dispersed across the city while being in resonant connection through a keener awareness of the way light moves through our everyday domestic spaces. The resulting images, when gathered together, will erase the distance between the sites in which they were produced, bringing us into alignment and closer presence with one another. In Remembrance positions the home and its associated everyday rituals as a potential site for morning's arrival. 100 subscribers are invited to share the name and date of the loss of a significant person in exchange for a lighting taper, beeswax candle, and brass candle holder. The candles can be lit as remembrance events arrive through the year. These candles and the shared act of lighting them collectively become part of an extended temporal duration performance, repeated annually for the lifetime of the artwork. Lighting a candle to remember someone is not new. It's a practice steeped in history across many cultures and countries. It exists inside and outside of religious practices. The lighting of a candle also invites in other collective everyday rituals: birthdays, shared meals, power cuts, concerts and gatherings, times of togetherness and connection. I want the subscribers to know that memories of loved ones are important and to know that others are with them in their remembering. It warms my heart to act in remembrance alongside others. Across the various works we've shared, it's evident to me that our joy of noticing is bound up with relational care and connection. This is what Ross Gay describes in his essay Free Fruit for All, that we are always and already enmeshed in a matrix of connection, not only in the here and now, but which comes to us from the past and extends forward into the future, and that this rhizomatic care is spatial, temporal, spiritual, and more. Our creative practices aim to amplify, make felt, seen and heard the threads of connection that may otherwise go unnoticed.
To conclude, Rising to Your Senses suggests extended durational social practice artworks must respond in time, a pause, a reprieve, a celebration, and an acknowledgement. The delight as we notice ourselves noticing, feel ourselves feeling, and see and share something familiar through a lens of exchange is joyful.
Inviting reciprocity through a creative exchange sustains us. In the context of the works we've shared here, it is the social conduits that effectively and softly make themselves known. Their agency as matter lies in their communication and process of dispersal into the world. Participation in artworks that utilise a form of exchange through bud vases, candles, fruit or flowers brings us into radical proximity with a community of others as creators, participants and public. Practising in these ways connects us all in a resonant space of manaakitanga and whakawhanaungatanga. Our joy is their joy. Their joy is our joy.
Ngā mihi nui, kia koutou katoa, thank you for listening.